Hello everyone, I'm Jack Fisher and welcome to my world. And we're now at part 4 of my ongoing effort to reimagine a rebooted Ultimate Marvel. Fittingly enough, part 4 will involve my ultimate vision for the Fantastic Four. Believe me, when I began planning this series, I didn't expect it to work out that way. Hell, I didn't expect it to involve multiple videos like this. But sometimes you just see a perfect opportunity for convergence and you embrace it. And for a rebooted Ultimate Marvel to work in the long run, it needs every opportunity it can get, especially when it comes to the Fantastic Four. Because I suspect that a rebooted Ultimate Fantastic Four will be a harder sell than any other Ultimate title. Most fans of the previous Ultimate comics understand why the X-Men needed to be revamped, and most would also agree that the Avengers/Ultimates needed an overhaul in some form or another. But the Fantastic Four has some unique challenges. It always has. That's a big part of what makes them so fantastic. By and large, the first iteration of Ultimate Fantastic Four succeeded in many ways. It reimagined Marvel's first family as this team of young, fresh-faced heroes who carved a unique niche for themselves in the world of Ultimate Marvel. They were not this mature family unit like their mainline counterparts. They were still young adults for the most part. Reed was still his brilliant self, Johnny was still reckless and headstrong, Ben was still this hardened, tough guy, and Sue was the compassionate heart that bound them all together. And Dr. Doom was still Dr. Doom, for the most part, so long as you ignored the whole goat legs phase. And believe me, I'd rather not get into why that didn't work. But then, the series took a dark turn after Ultimatum, as did the entire Ultimate Universe. That old family dynamic was destroyed. Reed Richards went full-on evil, becoming the Maker, who has since made his way to the mainline continuity. Ben, Sue, and Johnny basically had to navigate through the ashes, which led to a very different kind of Fantastic Four. And it worked, but only to a point. I'll admit that Reed Richards becoming the Maker was one of the few highlights of Ultimate Marvel post-Ultimatum. But it was hardly enough to carry a whole series. Like the rest of the Ultimate comics, there was just no larger plan for that story. It just sort of devolved the longer Ultimate went on. At the end of the day, Ultimate Fantastic Four did many great things, but eventually, it relied too much on being too different from the mainline Fantastic Four. An evil Reed Richards is an interesting story, but it's a temporary novelty at best and a short-term gimmick at worst. A rebooted Ultimate Fantastic Four cannot rely on either, and it can't just be different for the sake of being different. The Fantastic Four means something to Marvel fans. Make them too different, and they cease to be the Fantastic Four we all know and love. But make them too similar to their mainline counterparts, and what's the point? What sets them apart? Why bother retelling their story? I hope that puts the totality of this challenge into perspective. Rebooting Ultimate Marvel will require a new kind of Fantastic Four. One that still has the necessary Fantastic Family elements, but it also has to offer something distinct. Contemplating what form that'll take will be a daunting effort. I certainly don't claim to be the most qualified person to attempt that effort, but in recounting what made the first Ultimate Fantastic Four so special, and what makes the first family so endearing to begin with, I'd like to take up that challenge. What follows is my own personal vision for how a rebooted Ultimate Fantastic Four could take shape. Like my previous visions, I will lay out a plot that could make up the first 12 issues of the series, with an emphasis on establishing tone, theme, and greater characterization. With all that in mind, join me once again as I channel my inner Uwadu the Watcher, and present to you an all-new, all-different Ultimate Fantastic Four. Behind every great endeavor is an equally great curiosity. For some, it is enough to merely imagine new and exotic places, but for Susan Storm, that was never going to suffice. Born to Marion Franklin Storm, she and her older brother Johnny had never been one to merely fantasize. They sought to explore and experience the world around them. And the nature of their parents' work gave them many opportunities. Dr. Franklin Storm was a respected and acclaimed researcher. As head of the Baxter Research Initiative, he was at the forefront of developing new applications to the crashed alien technology that had landed on Earth a century ago. Whereas S.H.I.E.L.D., militaries, and nations emphasized practical uses of this technology, Dr. Storm emphasized understanding, learning the why as well as the how. His work took him to many labs all over the world. Sue and Johnny often traveled with him. From a young age, they got to experience many new places and meet many new people. While Johnny saw these experiences as thrills and excitement, Sue used them as opportunities for understanding. And the more she understood, the more her curiosity grew. As she got older, this put her at odds with her mother, Mary. The constant traveling had taken a toll on her as well as her marriage to Franklin Storm. Fighting between the two was common, often revolving on how best to use the science created by the Baxter Initiative. Franklin believed it should be used to further refine their understanding of the cosmos. Mary wanted to use this technology to create tangible products, including some they could sell. It all came to a head when Franklin found out that Mary had been stealing data and selling it to Christoph Vernard, a rogue scientist from the nation of Latveria, which S.H.I.E.L.D. had classified as a terrorist state. When confronted, Mary stormed out, leaving her family behind and disappearing without a trace. The effect of this event on Johnny and Sue was profound. Johnny became a lot more reckless, so much so that he got himself arrested multiple times. Eventually, he had to join the military in order to stay out of jail, ultimately becoming an Air Force pilot. But for Sue, Franklin wanted more stability, so he sent her to Empire State University. There, he hoped she would find a stable career, meet a nice guy, and settle down. She ended up finding much more than he ever intended, because it was at Empire State University that she met a young professor and former child prodigy named Reed Richards. She had actually enrolled in one of his classes by accident, but she was so enchanted by how he articulated science, knowledge, and the cosmos, she ended up changing her entire schedule just to be around him more. And Reed soon became equally enchanted by her, astonished by her insatiable curiosity, as well as her desire to explore. Thanks to her influence, Reed dared to turn his understanding of science into something bigger. And with the help of his eccentric but brilliant roommate, Victor Von Doom, he devised an experimental device, one that could open gateways into unknown worlds. But in order to make it work, they needed access to materials and hardware that only existed in a handful of places. One of them just happened to be the Baxter Space Station, the most advanced orbital lab in existence. Both Reed and Victor attempted to convince Dr. Storm to conduct their experiment. Sue even lobbied for them. But Dr. Storm rejected it, stating that too few people understood the science they were working with, and the materials they're asking for, especially the ultra-rare ISO-8, could not be spared. Dejected, Reed contemplates other options. None proved viable, not unless they were willing to break rules. But Victor, enraged that their experiment was rejected out of ignorance, convinces Reed to break those rules. Sue, despite her growing reservations about Victor, agreed to go along with them. Together, they hatched a plan. They would travel to the space lab aboard a private spaceplane under the guise of research assistants. Once there, they would conduct their experiment in the ISO-8 core, using it to create the rare cosmic energy necessary to open a gateway to the negative zone, an exotic domain that both Reed and Victor surmised from their work. But putting this plan into action required greater assistance. To that end, Reed enlisted the help of his former girlfriend, Alyssa Moy, who dropped out of college to start her own private space venture. Since Reed helped her with the designs of her advanced space planes and hadn't gotten a penny in profit, she agreed to lend him a ship. However, she refused to provide any pilots for their scheme. Undeterred, Sue reached out to Johnny, who was now out of the Air Force but also out of work, having struggled to land a job as a commercial pilot due to his criminal history. Reed also enlisted his childhood friend, Ben Grimm, a former S.H.I.E.L.D. soldier who got fired for picking one too many fights. He had recently been demoted and reduced to a transport pilot. So he jumped at the chance for a new gig, as did Johnny. Together, alongside Victor Von Doom, they take off in one of Alyssa's shuttles. Johnny and Ben, despite clashing at first, were able to guide them to the station. And Victor, having forged documents and clearances through means that he did not disclose, is able to get them access. Once aboard, they wait for a shift change, giving them a narrow but critical window to do the experiment. While Victor hacked the system and uploaded their data, Reed, Sue, Johnny, and Ben venture into the ISO-8 core. As they prepare for the experiment, Reed and Sue have a quiet moment. Together, they're able to look out a nearby window and admire the stars. And in that moment, Sue marvels at just how much she's explored on Earth, and how much she's yet to explore the cosmos. Reed, now sharing her curiosity, promises to take her as far as he can. He embraces her, and she embraces him. Reed is on the cusp of proposing to her before Ben and Johnny join them, saying this trip has been more exciting than anything they'd done to that point. Despite the romantic moment being ruined, they proceed with the experiment. And as the ISO-8 core becomes active, the cosmic energy aboard the station accumulates. All is going well. A gateway starts to form within the core. It's all going exactly as Reed had calculated. Then, at the last minute, Victor changes the experiment. Almost immediately, the ISO-8 core starts to go critical. The flood of cosmic energy into the station intensifies to dangerous levels. Reed urges Victor to shut it down, but Victor reassures him that his calculations are correct. The core will remain intact. But Reed keeps telling him he's wrong. Whatever gateway he opens will not be stable. But Victor still doesn't listen. He also reveals that he's had his own agenda all along, one that has nothing to do with the negative zone. He says it's personal, something he's been working on since getting exiled from Latveria. He prepares to unleash the cosmic energy. All over the station, emergency alarms go off. Everyone aboard the station flees to escape pods. Only Victor, Reed, Sue, Johnny, and Ben remain. From the core, the gateway widens. Victor, already boasting that his calculations were correct, attempts to stabilize it. But something goes horribly wrong. In the control room, the transmitter explodes, engulfing Victor in a mysterious fire. Then, the gateway in the ISO-8 core erupts, bathing the four in waves of unfiltered cosmic radiation. The resulting explosion causes parts of the station to break off. The part containing Victor descends into the atmosphere, burning up upon re-entry. The last transmission is one of Victor cursing out Reed, claiming he did something to ruin his experiment. As Victor's comlink goes silent, Ben Grimm realizes that the explosion damaged the chamber door. Through raw strength and determination, he manages to open it, allowing him, Johnny, Sue, and Reed to escape to a shuttle. They depart just as the rest of the station explodes. They barely manage to make it back to Earth, their ship crashing in upstate New York. They all survive, but when they re-emerge, they realize they've changed. Reed's body has warped, becoming stretchy and malleable. Sue's body keeps flickering in and out of visibility. Johnny is constantly on fire, but is never burned. And Ben has become a hulking rock creature. Confusion and anger sets in. Reed manages to contact Alyssa, who is able to rush them to a private laboratory near New York. Once there, Reed determines that the cosmic energy had changed them, its interaction with ISO-8 completely rearranging their molecular structure, as well as the physics that operate them. Ben urges Reed to find a way to reverse it, but he says he can't without knowing the data that Victor used in the experiment. To make matters worse, Dr. Strom arrives along with Nick Fury, outraged at what happened to the Baxter space station. They demand an explanation. Reed attempts to take full responsibility, but Sue steps in to defend him. She also demonstrates her powers, showing that Reed was right. He understands the science of what happened better than anyone. And if they want to understand it too, they must listen to him. Nick Fury remains unconvinced. He attempts to contain the Four. Then he gets an alert from Maria Hill. That gateway that was opened in the space station was just the first. Others have opened all over the world. From them, monsters from the negative zone come pouring out. Nick Fury and Dr. Storm seek to deploy the Avengers to fight back. But Reed argues there's another way. To stop this chaos, they must go to the source. They must venture into the negative zone to stop it. He volunteers, but Sue refuses to let him go alone. And Johnny refuses to let his sister go without him. And Ben, knowing Reed is the only one who can fix him, also agrees to go. Despite his many reservations, Dr. Storm takes them to the main Baxter building in New York. Once there, he opens the main lab to Reed, who mobilizes every resource to create a stabilizing device. Meanwhile, Ben and Johnny rig up a SHIELD hover transport, which they nickname the Fantastic Car. They all manage to complete their work just as monsters from the negative zone surround the Baxter building. Knowing the stakes, the Four join together once more and venture into the unknown. It's so dangerous and volatile. And yet, Sue finds herself taken by awe, knowing she's going to a place that none have ever traveled. Her awe is short-lived, though. After navigating through the gateway, Reed zeroes in on the source of the monsters. They're coming from a portion of the negative zone that has been used as a prison. And the prisoner most determined to get free is Blastar, the exiled monarch of Balor. Having been unable to return to his homeworld, he decides to settle for Earth. Having rallied the imprisoned monsters to his side, he prepares to invade. The Four confront him before he can get to the gate. Reed tries to reason with him, but Blastar refuses, and the Four must fight back. Ben Grimm leads the charge, admitting it feels good to clobber things once more and not be disciplined for it. Johnny joins him, pushing the limits of his fire powers, learning quickly that his recklessness can be channeled. This buys time for Reed and Sue to get to Blastar. They attempt to subdue him, but he fights back. And in the process, the stabilizing device that Reed created is destroyed. But just as all seems lost, Reed realizes that he's controlling the monsters through something called the Cosmic Control Rod, a device that also seems to control the gateways. He attempts to take it, and he's nearly killed in doing so. Sue, determined to save the man she loves, manages to rip the rod away from Blastar. In the process, she makes a discovery. These creatures were not malevolent. They were abducted from various parts of the cosmos, their bodies and minds twisted and warped. But it wasn't Blastar who did this to them. Someone more devious and malevolent was responsible. Upon realizing this, Sue uses the rod to recall the creatures and close many of the gateways. When Blastar tries to stop her, Ben and Johnny converge to knock him out, sending him falling into the vast void of the negative zone. With the Cosmic Control Rod now in hand, they return home. Sue then uses it all over the world to send the monsters back. TV cameras and cell phone videos capture the images. Alyssa also shares their story to the media before S.H.I.E.L.D. can cover it up. The Four are hailed as heroes, and when confronted by reporters, Johnny calls them the Fantastic Four. And being heroes is a family affair. That's their motto. This notoriety does not go over well first with Dr. Storm or Nick Fury. However, they cannot deny the positive reaction from the public. They also cannot deny that Reed was right about the negative zone. And if those monsters were any indication, there might be other threats dwelling within. Threats they would have to prepare for. Doing so required more exploration. And Reed, Sue, Johnny, and Ben were in a perfect position to do just that. In the end, Dr. Storm grants Reed a position at the Baxter building, as well as a place for Johnny and Ben. He also quietly gives Reed his blessing to propose to Sue, something he does just as they're contemplating their next mission into the unknown. While Sue enthusiastically accepts this new life with Reed, Ben is still adjusting to his new life. As he takes a walk down his old neighborhood on Yancey Street, a figure in a cloak approaches him. He claims he can help him turn back into his old self, but doing so requires that he steal the cosmic control rod. Ben is tempted, but he refuses, claiming he won't betray his new family. The figure expresses disappointment, saying he will never get another chance to be normal again. And then he disappears. Days later, news breaks that the Latvian government has collapsed. A swift and bloody coup has occurred. A new figure has taken power. Little is known about who is behind all this, but a lone voice, one muffled by a metal mask, delivers this message. This world is broken, and I shall fix it. Be my ally, or face doom. Once again, I'll take a moment or two to catch my breath. Now, I freely admit that this vision is not radically different from the Fantastic Four's original origin, but I did try to mix things up a bit to allow for some greater novelty. However, that novelty stopped short of making Reed evil or something that extreme. The previous Ultimate comics already did that, and it got old fast. For this version of the Fantastic Four, we need the basics as well as the concepts that help set them apart from previous iterations. The idea here was to combine the best of their classic origin with the stuff that worked so well with the previous Ultimate Fantastic Four. In the previous Ultimate comics, it wasn't a space mission that gave them their powers. It was a teleportation experiment. And, in their classic origins, the nature and purpose of their fateful trip was never more than an unauthorized test flight. It's simple and elegant, but it doesn't leave that much room for expansion. This version that I laid out tries to incorporate elements of both. It keeps the whole space mission angle, and it also incorporates the negative zone into the mix. I also made it a point to include the foundation of the rivalry between Reed Richards and Victor Von Doom. That rivalry is critical for any iteration of the Fantastic Four, and this is no exception. Both characters are at their best when they affect one another in profound ways. Dr. Doom will never admit when he's wrong, or when Reed is right. Even when the consequences literally blow up in his face, he'll never concede. In this version of Ultimate Marvel, that arrogance is what leads to the accident. It's also a defining moment for him and the Fantastic Four. They are who they are because of Victor, and he is who he is because of the Fantastic Four. It effectively ties their stories together in ways that goes beyond a personal rivalry. And if anyone in the Fantastic Four wanted their old lives back, they'd have to go through Victor, as he's the only one who knew the full extent of what happened to them. For someone like Ben Grimm, that makes every clash a lot more personal. Beyond those connections, I also think that a new Fantastic Four should unfold through a certain perspective. In the previous Ultimate comics, much of that perspective came from Reed. He's the first character we meet, and it's largely through him that the story unfolds. That's all well and good, but I think following the perspective of an obsessive super genius is a bit tricky. The same could be said for a hothead like Johnny or a brawler like Ben. That's why I believe that Sue offers the ideal perspective for this new Ultimate universe to unfold within. Like her mainline counterpart, she's the heart of the team. She's not a super genius or some super capable fighter. She's just someone with a big heart and a thirst for adventure. Even before she meets Reed, she has this desire to explore, understand, and connect. More than any other character, she embodies the true spirit of the Fantastic Four. And for that reason, I believe that she should be the guiding force for this new Ultimate version of the team. They're not just another brand of costume heroes like the Avengers, nor are they superpowered outcasts like the X-Men. They're a family. Yes, they're a family forged by unexpected circumstances, but they're still a family nonetheless. And together, they explore unknown domains, making all sorts of fantastic discoveries every step of the way. That has always been the essence of the Fantastic Four. And for this rebooted Ultimate Universe, it would have an even greater purpose. If you recall, my Ultimate Origins video established some of the unique features of this universe. While the Avengers defend the world, and the X-Men simply try to survive within it, the Fantastic Four will be the ones who explore it. doing so will open the door to plenty of other stories, some of which can bleed into other Ultimate books. I believe it would create a foundation for some truly fantastic journeys. And making those journeys compelling will be critical to making this new Ultimate Marvel work. But to be a truly viable Marvel universe, this new Ultimate universe needs one last critical component. Specifically, it needs its most iconic character, Spider-Man. As such, the next part in this series will cover how he could fit into a rebooted Ultimate Marvel. Believe me, I know I have my work cut out for me, but I look forward to seeing this through. In the meantime, please let me know what you think of this vision of the Fantastic Four and my other visions for Ultimate Marvel thus far. It's almost complete, and I truly hope to finish it off on an amazing note. Thanks for watching, everyone, and thanks for joining me in my world. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, take care and stay safe.